right? And one thing I haven't done yet is I haven't added any like key shape. So I don't know what this kind of shape is yet, or like what this design is yet. It's just like abstract so far. It's like modern art almost. I can do things like curve it in a little bit, maybe like curve it in this way, and then make this part thinner.
So you're telling me if I do this 5,000 times, I'll get soul?
You do anything enough times, you get soul. Like I think soul just comes from like you following a process and getting sick of it. I think a lot of soul comes from like that, where it's like you just do something that you feel like works, and then like you do it enough times that you start like being like, no, I don't want to do it like this anymore. I want to do it my own way. And then like at least that's how it kind of. I mean, I'm not the most soulful artist either, but I think I see people doing that where they're just like, like fuck the rules and all that shit. All right, so let's go ahead and bring this into like some kind of design, right? So right now I need to start adding like my second level details or like to push out my silhouette. So for example, if I want to make this into a spaceship or something, I can make this into a spaceship. If I want to make it into like architecture or like a boat or car or whatever else, then like for example, car, like all I really need to do is like add a few wheels, right? Like if I just go ahead and add these wheels, it's like it's going to be pretty recognizable as some kind of land transport. See that? It's going to look like some kind of buggy, right? But if I go in and I add some other shit at this point, like I don't know, maybe it's like let's try to make it into a spaceship. Let's just like go ahead and add some like wing panels. I don't know, like maybe we can throw them like down. Maybe we can be like over here. Right, turn it upside down. Throw some paneling on that. Like bam, we got ourselves a little bit of a ship. See how that works? Right, throw a cockpit in there. I don't know. Put some like fucking rocket boosters or whatever. Right, we can turn it into other stuff. The shape design is like it's like it's the foundation for everything else. If we have a good shape, we can like turn it into whatever the fuck we want. All right, so let me go ahead and like just throw down some buggy wheels like I had before. Right. And it does get like a little more complicated than this if you're like talking about real transportation, like design. Like you got like Scott Roberts and shit, right? He'll get like really autistic about like graphical breakdown, and like he'll care about like where your like actual like functionality is, like your shock absorbers or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
How your like, joints work, and that's like autism you can get into specifically for like any like one thing you want to design. But if you're just like doing something general or like doing like general sort of practice for like concept, then I would like recommend actually staying away from that in the beginning and just like doing something fun. And once you have that, right, then you can get into the autism, because it's like if you have like pure autism and no fun with your design, it's like nobody's gonna really like it. But if you're like fun first, and then like you also have that like autism level where it's like, oh yeah, like I figured out everything about like how this machine actually works, then it's like that's just kind of cool because you already like it, and then once you already like it and how it works, that's like that's good for you as a viewer. You enjoy that. So here we go. I'm gonna go ahead and throw in like a little bit of a cockpit or whatever. Right? And we can just like play around with shapes. If I were like Scott at this point, I would be like probably talking about like graphical breakdown. So when Scott thinks about,
it's a very Scott Robertson kind of thing you just made.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm just feeling Scott-ish right now. But here's what he does when he like does his thumbnailing: is he'll think about like his blacks and his whites, or he'll think about like his value structure and his like how his values are split up, right? So he uses two things. He uses decals and he uses shadows. If he's so like it doesn't matter if like your darkness or your lightness comes from a decal or from a shadow, right? In the end, it's still dark or it's light. So he'll kind of like combine them into one big group of thinking. With like, okay, we can have like the shadow from the underside of the carriage over here. We can have like the shadow from like this part of the axle. And then let's also like see if we can design with some decals, right? So like he might do something like this, where we can put in some kind of shape over here, just with like, I don't know, either like a cut line or like with a bend of the form or whatever else.
Sway.
Yeah. And then it'll be the same thing as a shadow, right? Like functionally it's the same, even if it's like not from the same source. Right? So he might have something like that. I'm not sure. No, Scott wouldn't do that. Right. So that's like pretty much the design process. I mean, it's not too much complicated from that. Like from thumbnail, like you can get to this thumbnail stage relatively quickly with some practice. And then once you like have this thumbnail stage down, right, and you're like ready to move on to final renders, what you can do is you can like start thinking about second and third level details, which is to say like you have like all these big fucking details right now, right? But it feels like a toy because it's you know what? Let's make it face the other way. It feels like a toy because it's got no detail to it, right? It feels like it's got no resolution. So what you want to do is, you know what? I want to make this wheel bigger. Since we're like facing this way, the other way now, I'm going to just make this side fucking huge. Yeah, let's do that. And then let's like put in some kind of fucking cabin. Play around with our shape language a bit. I'm like having the square over here. And it doesn't feel like it's integrated well. So yeah, now we're going to like see if we can integrate our big shapes. And the way we're going to do that is with smaller shapes, right? We can have these like smaller bits in between all of our big bits. And we can get like little details in there. Like, you know, for example, how do the headlights on this piece of shit work? You know, how do the, like, is there air intake? Is there like any special sort of detail that we have? You know, what's the tread look like? All that crap. What's like the hubcap look like? You know, smaller details until like the whole drawing is just finished. Right? Like paneling lines and whatnot. That's like all it is. Like drawing from imagination is just like a little bit of shape design, plus a little bit of reference, plus a little bit of fucking perspective. If you can get all those things down, then you're good. And if you're doing like something like,
no, that works for vehicles, but like, what about organic shapes like characters, figures?
okay, so we can do the same thing. Let's like I've been doing these vehicle stuff for like the classes lately, so that's just kind of been where my head is. But let's do the same thing, right? Remember how like we had this organic, like weird ass shape design, and we kind of added wheels, and that's how it made it like that's it was only like at that point that it looked like a vehicle. So let's do the same thing here. Like let's find some shapes, right? And I'm just gonna keep it like real basic here. Let's do this, right? Let's find a nice shape design first. So like I want something that feels dynamic. I want something that feels like maybe energetic. Let's do this, right? So there's our big, medium, small. There's a little bit of shape design, right? Abstract shape design, just like modern art type shit. And then let's go ahead and just put our figure onto it. So, you know, this is like what makes something look like a person? What makes something look like a character, right? You know, maybe a head, maybe some like arms, maybe some legs. So it's like the exact same thing. So here's where like all that fucking Vilpoo ought to come in handy for you.
Yes, it probably should.
Right. Sorry, my figure drawing isn't the best. All right. Maybe make it smaller. We can adjust the proportion a little bit and see if we can like fit this shape design that we have into a character, right? I mean, we can like, you know, rotate it around maybe. Like, does that look better? Right? Maybe like flip it. I don't know. Fucking just play around a little bit until you have like a nice overlay of shape and figure. And that's how you can like do your costuming, right? You can also do things like start with a shape design with like, you know, so say we have something like this, right? We just basically do the exact same process that I did with the car, where we like go ahead and start adding details, start adding like limbs. We start like figuring out what the fuck these clothes are supposed to be. Like, is this some kind of cloak? Is this some kind of cape? Is this like, you know,
A shield
like,
or something?
yeah, like how do we integrate that, right? We can also do the same thing with like character design. If you want to like go more animation-ish, right? You can do the same thing, but with but like starting out your character with like these weirdo shapes, right? So if you want to, you can be like, okay, you know what? I want this guy's, you know, body to be just like this big fucking like chunk over here, right? I want like this guy's pelvis to be like really square. And, you know, there's nobody forcing me to like put squares down for like his body and for his like pelvis or anything. That's just something I want to do. I could use like circles, I could use triangles. And we can just like play around. It's like the same thing where it's like we start with the graphic design, right? And then we see if we can find something, kind of nice looking as far as the graphic goes. And then after we have that, right, we can go in and throw some like more like figured out anatomy and like our second or third level details in to make it feel look more like a human character, right? And then so say we do this, right? We take our guy, we put him in our like triangle clothing, right? And you can already kind of see a sketch coming out. I'm not sure what's going on here, but he looks like some kind of like maybe he's wearing some kind of toga or some shit, right? That's it. I mean, like, bro, it's like if you're grinding shit like anatomy or fundamentals, you're already in a pretty good spot. I wouldn't worry about it. Like, going from that to like drawing from imagination is it's fucking easy peasy. You just have to try it.